Ooh, baby. this, when things like this happen, and what am I talking about? Well, you know that this is your Patreon only Sovryn Tech Star Wars update. But when I get to see things, my little creations or whatever the hell I have going on actually grow, I get excited. I get so excited. And I'm really excited about this. And this guy, well, I know he knows just how much of an honor this is. No, I'm not going to play it up that hard. But I don't just let guys on my show, okay? Women, they can come out all day long. I don't care. And do whatever they want. I don't just let other dudes get on this show. But this guy, oh yeah, baby. He was, when I was thinking about bringing on co-hosts for various aspects of Sovryn Tech, this guy was like at the top of the list. I said, well, I gotta, I gotta work with this guy. So anyway, it's Robin Freebeard. Robin, welcome to Sovryn Tech. Welcome to we've announced it previously that you're now a part of the cabal, part of the family. But welcome to the Star Wars update, my new co-host that's going to be here every month for this action.
Woo! Snuggle right woogie.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So, Robin and we've known each other for a few years now. It was mainly online. We did finally meet at PorkFest. Was that 2 years ago?
No, it was, I want to say it was longer than that.
3?
I think it was like 4 years ago.
Holy shit. Might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we finally got to meet then, but even online, as much as I complain about social media and online interactions and everything, and I've said some of this, some people may have heard this before on Patreon episodes when I've talked about you, like when you've been on the live Q&As and everything. Like, you're just one of those guys. I just felt an instantaneous connection. Like you could finish my sentences, and I make a lot of really obscure references to shit most of the time online, and you just know every one of them. And most people don't realize it's a litmus test on my part. Like there's a reason I keep this shit vague, because I'm looking for people like you. I'm like, where is this guy where are these people that understand what the fuck I'm talking about? And when I find them, I love them. So anyway, it's a real honor to be doing this with you, man.
It's an honor to be here. I love you like a brother, and I
likewise.
I mean, I just love spending time with you. So I mean, this is just a treat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the feeling is totally mutual. I mean, totally mutual all the way. So this is going to be great. And I mean, it's a lot of fun, just to talk Star Wars. I mean, you can have fun with anybody, but we're a couple of guys, just to explain. I mean, we're a couple of guys. I mean, we're heavies, like we're sweaties when it comes to.
I was just going to say we're sweaties.
Yeah, when it comes to Star Wars, we're as sweaty as they come, man, in my opinion. I mean, we're like, I'm surrounded. Well, I don't know if I'm going to release the video of this, but there is video. But like behind me, people see the studio sometimes. And I mean, there's just Star Wars books lying, technical manuals, not even just books. There's technical manuals lining everything. I know you have kind of a similar situation.
Yeah, right there. There's a shelf full of Star Wars books. I was kind of hoping to have a setup where I could have that behind me, but it didn't work out this time. Maybe next time people will get to look at my library.
Hell yeah. No, right on, man. So yeah, I mean, and there's starships all over the place. Anyway, it's just, we're just showing off our cred, but we can talk it up. So anyway, I think I've talked about, and if I haven't, at some point in the future, maybe I'll talk about it more. I'm pretty sure I've talked about how I got into Star Wars. I mean, I will just say briefly, for me, it was one of the things that existed in the 80s. I was born in 81, and it was the most realistic looking science fiction, and that made it kind of the coolest for me. And that hooks you, as a kid. But of course, later on, as I would often say, and I know you'd agree with Robin, I mean, like when the computer games, especially the flight simulators like X-Wing and TIE Fighter,
especially TIE Fighter.
Yeah, I mean, those make you a man, like they like they make a man out of you. And TIE Fighter, in fact, I was just talking to another Sovryn Tech co-host. I was just talking to Ellen the other day, and she was asking me about TIE Fighter. I said, oh, no, we were talking about classic gaming. And I said, no, you don't understand. TIE Fighter is a lifestyle. That's not a video game. Like you live that. It changes you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that was one of the first games where I felt so totally immersed in a universe. Like
exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. This might come up later on when we're talking about Rebels. We got a lot of news to talk about, a lot of stuff to review. There's a lot we're going to be getting into. But Robin, I want to hear from you, man. Like, how did you get into Star Wars? Like when were you born? Because I think that's important to how people experience Star Wars. And then like how did it hook you? How did all that happen? Go for it.
It's actually, I was born in the summer of '77, so I was born.
Oh, you're a Star Wars baby, like
yeah,
the real deal.
yeah. Well, I mean, like quite literally, because the first time my parents saw the movie, my mother was pregnant with me. So I don't know how seriously you want to take these ideas that, babies hear things in the womb, but I like to think that, maybe I was kind of rocking out to the Star Wars theme when I was,
Hell yeah, man.
But I mean, yeah, Star Wars has just kind of like always been there for me. My earliest memory was of seeing A New Hope at a drive-in theater in the back of my parents' station wagon. And that's as far back as I go as far as my memories. And I'm not entirely like clear on when that happened, even because Star Wars during its initial release was in theaters for like over 2 years. It was like almost 2.5 years. I mean, they had an official release that ended, at a certain point, but then they extended it the very next day for like 8 more months. And it turned out to be like I said, about 2.5 years. So, I mean, I could have even seen it during its, initial theatrical run.
Yeah, its original run, right? Because it was such like a monstrosity of a movie, like nothing before. Yeah, it had that crazy 2-year run. And
that's one of the things I kind of point out with Star Wars and kind of the big deal it is like, what kind of movie did you see that stays in theaters for that long? I mean, sure, you can point to other movies and say, well, this movie made more money and this and that, but like how many movies you can say was in movie theaters for over a 2-year period?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only one I can think of, honestly, on the top of my head. I mean, movies in general have like significantly, not to sidetrack at all, but like movies in general used to be like, it wasn't uncommon for a movie to be in theaters 2-3 months. Now it's like 2 weeks if you're lucky. So, I mean, things have changed dramatically, sure. But even then, even back when there was much longer release schedules, man, 2 years is still crazy.
It is. It really is. And, it's phenomenal. The kind of fervor it kicked up during it, like I said, its initial run. There's this story about George Lucas that after they finished the movie, he actually went back and was editing the foreign releases. And he and his wife went to dinner at a restaurant across from the Man Chinese Theater, and they saw this huge crowd outside the theater, and they're like, what's going on? What movie is released? Well, they went outside and it was his movie,
Amazing. Yeah. So how did that, so obviously, like, I think that's a really cool idea that you were experiencing Star Wars from the womb, right?
Right.
But so like, I mean, but where did it go from there? And you remember it in a drive-in, so it's like your first experience. Like, I mean, but how did it? Because I think this is so interestingly. Of course, love of my life, Stephanie Murphy. She actually doesn't like Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for everybody. And I will admit, it is more of kind of a boy's fantasy, at least the initial movie.
Yeah, I could see that in a way. But the conclusion I came to, because honestly, so most of my life, I had the running theory is that you either like Star Wars or you just never saw it, or you didn't see the entire original trilogy or something like that. Was, and I never, seriously, up until Stephanie, and I totally respect her opinion, and she makes a very great case.
Right.
Up until I met Stephanie, and showed the films to her, I never met anybody that didn't like them. At least somewhat like. I mean, she liked the original trilogy well enough, but then when things got beyond that, she's like, well, what the fuck is this? And maybe I can understand that perspective a little more too.
Yeah, I can too. I mean, when I was younger, I certainly held that same opinion that you either you like Star Wars or you weren't my friend.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, that was just kind of like the fervor that it instilled in people, and that that movie made people super sweaties.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, well, I think those movies, made people, cinephiles. I think it made or inspired so many careers. No doubt about that. But
yeah, I went to college initially for do computer animation because I wanted to go work on a Star Wars movie.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, right on. Yeah. Well, I mean, so, but after I experienced that with Stephanie, I was like, okay, so wait a minute. So what exactly did this? Like what actually makes like the really crazy Star Wars fan? I figured people just automatically became it after they experienced it. But it doesn't always happen that way. And so
Right.
I came to the conclusion that it's like a lot of it has to do with cool factor as far as what really brings its value. But then I think it's the things outside of it. And when you're into those, when you can get into the things outside, like we mentioned, the TIE Fighter game and stuff like that, that's what really makes you like the crazy, Star Wars sweaty.
No, it's true. And like for me, when I was, like a little bit older, not like early teenage years,
Sure.
I really got into the Star Wars role playing game put out by West End Games.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like another thing, and that was actually before the TIE Fighter games came out because I think those were released in '88. And I mean, just the fact that
TIE
you
Fighter
could,
was 94. Yeah.
I mean, like when you're kids and you're playing with the action figures with your friend, it's already kind of like a sandbox universe. But like, when you're actually immersed in it and you're playing these characters and you're making your own character within the Star Wars universe and you're creating your own stories and everything. I mean, to me, that's like what really kind of still holds my interest in Star Wars is that, it is just kind of like this sandbox universe that anybody can participate in. And in fact, it's that level of participation that really makes Star Wars special.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. Yeah, boy, I have so much I want to say on that, but, so you would say though that West End Games, the original D6 role playing, tabletop role playing game, that's probably what turned you into like the crazy Star Wars fan, right? Is that what you would say?
I mean, I kind of was already a crazy. I've always been a crazy Star Wars fan because I mean, like I was nuts over the Kenner toys when I was a little kid. I mean, I had Millennium Falcons and the Star Destroyers, and like sure. I had the Darth Vader head shaped carrying case for all the action figures. Yeah.
One, two. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. I had all, and I was nuts about collecting those action figures.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the things that kind of hooked you in. But like, what made you the Star Wars fan was literally, the Star Wars movies were enough. Like that's what did it for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's just kind of it's grown over time, and like I said, once I started, experiencing more of those, participatory culture elements of Star Wars, is really just kind of has always kind of held me in, there was one point where I kind of a little bit drifted out of Star Wars, but it didn't last very long.
What was that point, real quick?
That would be 99.
Oh, episode 1.
yeah. But it wasn't just episode 1 because we were talking before the show, but they released Vector Prime, which is the Yuuzhan Vong storyline. And
New Jedi Order,
and that just that didn't interest me at all. It just, I tried reading Vector Prime and I didn't like it at all. And I just didn't enjoy the direction that they were taking Star Wars. And not only that, LucasArts, they pretty quickly went back on this, but before episode 1 came out, they had kind of said, well, we're done making original trilogy games, so we're not going to make those anymore.
I remember that.
And I was just so heartbroken. And I was like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah,
and
I think
like
that's.
I said,
go ahead.
Yeah, and like I said, fortunately, they changed their minds on that, and you eventually got things like the Old Republic RPG and stuff like that. But yeah, when they made that announcement, and then along with Vector Prime and along with Episode 1, it was just kind of like a trifecta of things to bring me down.
Yeah, because I think that announcement, that's one of the ugliest announcements like in Star Wars history, because I think that killed the aforementioned flight simulator games, which were very popular, wildly fucking popular, and other flight simulator series would keep going. Wing Commander would keep going after the fact and everything, and I honestly I think that entire genre. I mean, there was Free Space and others, but I think that whole genre died because Star Wars stopped playing a part in it.
I don't disagree.
Though there was Starfighter and there was, I know those were kind of out there, but they weren't the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, and people were really into the was the Rogue Squadron games, but they were kind of like,
Right.
I mean, I know those were good games, but for a X-wing and TIE Fighter fan, they were kind of pale imitations.
Yep. Yep. No, you're right. They were beautiful games, especially the ones for the GameCube. They were some of the greatest
Right.
games ever made, but they're not immersive. They're
No.
very, very different animals from what we were used
They're
to.
more of an arcade game.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Which,
Exactly.
like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not knocking anybody who loves those games because they are good games.
Yep. Yeah. So okay. So you had a spot where, I mean, I'll say quick, I was like, I was always a true believer. Like, I mean, I enjoyed episode 2, and I know for a lot of people that's like the craziest ass thing to say. But I just like, I just stuck with it. I'm like, well, no, there's something going on that's going to make this great. And you could still go back and play TIE Fighter. So who gave a shit? But
yeah. I mean, and it's not that I hated the prequels. I mean, in fact, I was still a true believer up until the point when the movie came out, because I mean, I did that whole charity drive thing with the Starlight Foundation and waiting in line in front of the theater to raise money for the Make-A-Wish and all that. And I got to see the episode 1 at the theater that George Lucas goes to. In fact, when I went to pick up my tickets for the opening night, the Lucasfilm screening was just getting out, so I got to see George Lucas and actually go and talk to one of the producers for a little while. So I mean, it was cool. It was a cool experience, and I wouldn't give it up for anything.
Sure. So that was the charity re-release that was like months later for episode 1?
No, this was the opening day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because a lot of people forget about it. Episode 1 like came back into theaters a few months later,
right?
As a charity release, which I certainly went to go catch that. But anyway, okay. So yeah, so you don't hate the prequels. That's actually an important bit of information to get out there about you.
Yeah, well, I mean, like my appreciation for them has grown over time too. Like I didn't hate them when they came out. I certainly was disappointed by some of the aspects of it, but I didn't hate them. I wasn't going out there trying to say, if you like the prequels, then you're not a Star Wars fan, which I know there was a lot of that going on, and I think that's bullshit. But yeah, and one of the things that really kind of enriched my enjoyment of the prequels was, of course, the Clone Wars TV series, which is just like one of the most phenomenal things in Star Wars in the last, decade.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as that show hit season 3, like,
it
really took
when
off.
They did that storyline on was it Dathomir with the Night Sisters.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was so rad.
Yeah. No, I liked like Savage Opress, and I know that name's kind of ridiculous to some people. I thought that was cool. I was like, no, this is good.
No, but was it Clancy? What's his first name?
Brown.
Yeah, Clancy Brown. He voiced and he's voiced a character in Rebels too. But I mean, I've loved him since Highlander. He's fantastic.
Oh, the Kurgan, absolutely.
Yeah. He plays a great villain.
Yeah.
You couldn't have cast a better actor for that role.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, okay. Well, then I think we've got some pretty good background on you as far as how you got into this and your thoughts actually on a broader range of things.
Yeah.
And I think actually your point about the prequels, I think, is a nice segue kind of into our first story here. Because I think the reason that a lot of people are saying things similar, and I know you were way ahead of this bandwagon, but there's a bandwagon now of people who are like, yeah, actually the prequels aren't so bad. And I think the reason for that is because they're not the last movies we're getting out of Star Wars.
Right.
I think a lot of people are just like, okay, all right, well, as long as that's not all, then they can exist and that's fine, and whatever, people can enjoy them if they enjoy them.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I mean, like, there's been a huge kind of sort of paradigm shift in terms of like the future of Star Wars movies. Because I mean, we have to contemplate the fact that there are going to be Star Wars movies that we never see because we'll be dead.
Well, I'm not planning on dying, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. For us puny mortals.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, Star Wars is going to be going for maybe it's going to be going for a long, long time.
Yeah, and we'll get into
the point that segues nicely as well to our first story, because we're going to talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. First thing, the trailer that came out. And after The Last Jedi, which I think next month in March you and I will both do a review of The Last Jedi after it's come out on, Blu-ray and all that bullshit.
Cool.
And we can talk that up. But that's I think The Last Jedi, and I think you're on a Q&A talking about this at one point. We won't spend much time on it, but just to say that The Last Jedi is really, really divisive, and I think it's actually it's potentially the most hurtful thing to ever happen to Star Wars. In a lot of people's minds, not in mine. I enjoyed it, and I'm fairly certain you loved it.
I mean, we'll get it into a review. My second viewing wasn't as positive as my first viewing. So
sure, right.
I don't hate the movie. But I do recognize that it's divisive. And actually, I think I have some issues with it that we'll get into it. But I think there's some issues with the movie that not a lot of people are talking about. In fact, they're looking at it completely the ass backwards.
Okay, well, that's a nice tease for next month's Star Wars update.
Right.
We'll get into that there because I'm dying to hear those too. So anyway, because of the divisiveness of The Last Jedi, I mean, and the very close release between, Last Jedi came out, December 15th, 16th, 17th, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then Solo, A Star Wars Story, is coming out May 25th, 2018. I mean, just very few months apart. I think even for the hardcore Star Wars fan, like there's not a lot of, I don't know, there's weariness, there's concern, there's things that I would never, and including with myself, there's things that I would never expect that I would feel about anything Star Wars coming out, where I would just be like, I don't know about this. And the trailer hit there was like a preview during the Super Bowl, and then the next morning on Good Morning America, like a full trailer hit. And I put a link in the show notes. People can check it out. But Robin, I mean, let's start off with you. I mean, what did you think about the trailer for Solo, A Star Wars Story?
Well, I mean, just off the bat first, before that, I mean, before the movie, like when the movie was announced, I mean, I will not disagree with the sentiment that many people felt that this was like an unnecessary movie.
Yep, I share that.
Yeah. So I mean, I wasn't really kind of very hyped for it to begin with.
Right.
As far as the trailers go, I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot to it, except for them doing what they usually do with Star Wars, just like kind of putting up a lot of the cool factor sort of clips. And I'll admit, I mean, it does look like a good movie, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good movie.
Sure.
So I will say, being 100% honest, I'm a little bit more excited than I was before the trailer came out, but I'm still not that excited. I mean, kind of like I've gone to like, well, I'll see it, the week it comes out, to like, okay, maybe I'll go opening day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, see, now me, and I want to ask you what you think, like maybe the highlight of it was in a minute. Because I don't think I've talked about the trailer at all on Sovryn Tech. Mm-hmm. But when I saw it, I don't know, I get it, but I just didn't. I was stunned at just how apathetic I felt about it, like because you mentioned earlier Vector Prime with the New Jedi Order, the Yuuzhan Vong series and all that. And this was like a series that was like 20 books. Mm-hmm. But I remember when the first book came out, and that might have been actually like 2000 or 2001 or something. But regardless, it doesn't matter. I mean, what I do 99. Remember, it was definitely 99.
Yeah, no, okay. Absolutely, yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, but what I do absolutely remember was there was a trailer for this book, which I thought was crazy.
Oh yeah.
And Mark Hamill voiced the trailer.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Yeah, and I remember seeing it on the Sci-Fi Channel. I thought it was like the most amazing thing. I mean, and my point being is that a book like that, which I agree underdelivered, especially when you have Mark Hamill, doing some voicing, like that excited the fuck out of me, Yeah. And it wasn't like we didn't have Star Wars movies or great games or it's not like there wasn't a it's not like it was a dearth of content at the time. So I'm just like, this is the first time where I've really felt like I just don't give a shit about something and it's a Star Wars movie of all things, like the biggest thing that it could possibly be, the most important, arguably, thing that it could possibly be. And I am completely apathetic about it. I don't think there's anything that necessarily looks bad in the trailer, but then at the same time, I don't know. Yeah, all right.
I have a theory about this, and you can tell me whether or not you agree or disagree with it, because I sense it too, and I don't have a problem with anything you've said. I'm kind of almost in the same boat, but
sure.
So here's my theory: is that especially after, and we've talked about The Last Jedi, and I know we agree on this, but we've kind of grown calluses to Star Wars marketing.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
No, yeah, that's fair. And admittedly, like, especially after The Last Jedi, I am really weary of Star Wars marketing, like big time.
Right.
Because there is a lot of ugly shit that was done as far as marketing goes. And I talked about this on the Sovryn Tech Prime review of Star Wars of The Last Jedi back in December. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair theory I could see that. But like, even then there's, what else kind of shocks me is that I'm tired of, not of new movies. I'm tired of like new shit in Star Wars. Like the thing that probably disappointed, I don't know if I can even think of a high note in the trailer. Like, cause I want to ask you what you thought the high note was, but I'll also ask what the low note is. I can give you a low note. I can't really think of a high note. And I don't even think Lando was a high note. I really don't understand this hype machine around Lando right now, as much as I love the character.
Well, I understand it. I'm just sort of like, I'm not affected by it. So, I mean, but I can understand it. And I think, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think the hype around Lando has a lot to do with kind of like the same thing that's where you're getting the hype around Black Panther and stuff. And this is important because representation in movies is important. And people seeing characters they can identify with in movies is important. So I'm not going to knock anybody who felt excited over the, Donald Glover's appearance as Lando. Because, I mean, I think he does fit the role. I think he's probably going to do a fantastic job.
Yep.
And I think people who feel excited about that aspect have every right to.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if that's the angle, like if the angle is, we want representation of this culture, minority and everything, in movies, then great. Like that I get,
right.
Like parts of it didn't feel like that's what it was, but that I can completely understand. And of course I support.
That's what I've heard from other people too. So, I mean, like, I'm not just saying this from my own perspective.
Sure.
I'm telling you what I've heard from other people, and I'm like, okay, I get that. That makes total sense to me. And, and here again, I have nothing bad I can say about that.
Sure. Yeah. So now, as far as low note, and then we'll get to your high and low. The low note for me was actually was the new TIE fighter that you see like towards the end.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, stop this. Like this is a problem with so many of the new movies is, could I get a Rodian? Could I get a Weequay? Or
Twi'lek.
Can I get a Twi'lek or something?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can get it in Rebels all day long.
Right.
I can get it in the comic books all day long. But what is this fucking obsession with coming up with like new designs and everything when they have all the capabilities in the world to perfectly mimic anything done in the 70s and 80s?
I think it has a lot to do with the directors they're picking. And these directors kind of want to leave their own mark on Star Wars, so they're going to introduce all kinds of new shit.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, but you know what it does for me as somebody who, like I said, TIE Fighter, the game is like a way of life. As somebody who, actually really likes the Empire from a fan standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that there aren't that many variant designs of Imperial ships was part of the attitude. Like this is mass production, I don't know, like there were.
I'm gonna argue that a little bit.
All right, go for it.
Because I mean, like, and you should kind of be aware of this because in the TIE Fighter games and especially in like X-Wing Alliance, there were a lot of variants. They had the whole series of experimental TIE fighters that were all kinds like weird looking. In fact, I even mentioned that there was kind of like a heavy weapons TIE fighter that had like a turbo laser attached to it. It was two like pods coming off of a single wing, and that thing looked ridiculous. And so like the one that's in the Solo trailer, it kind of looks like it probably has some heavy weapon. I'm like, okay, well, that actually makes a little more sense than the one that was in the game. But I do hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting annoyed with this in the old expanded universe too, because like they were just coming out with the tie, whatever, just like they were trying to. They had to keep coming. Okay, like, all right, what can we make a starfighter look like that looks like the letter E, so we can have an E?
Right. Yeah. Or, well, and the other thing they're doing. I mean, I don't want to say that they're doing this specifically for this case, but they have the X-Wings miniature games. And they have to keep on coming out with expansions, and so they're always looking for new starfighters and new ships and stuff like that. So I mean,
maybe that's the real answer. Is it's just to have new merchandise?
I think it is, and it's unfortunate too, because I mean, like, Disney is really pushing the merch way too hard. I mean, I think if one thing they're doing that's a big mistake is they're overproducing a bunch of schlock merchandise.
Yeah, it's like episode 1 all over again.
It's worse than episode 1. It seems like it's worse. I mean, they're just flooding the market. I mean, I've seen stuff up on YouTube of people going to department stores, and there's, Star Wars Last Jedi figures on sale for 99 cents.
Oh my God.
They can't give them away.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
I can believe that. All right, so for you, highs and low, or like your highest high and your lowest low as far as the Solo trailer goes.
I mean, I didn't really have any real big highs or lows. I mean, like I said, it made me a little bit more excited from the movie, but like my response to it was kind of even and I mean, I don't know if it's the Kessel Run that they're doing, that they come into contact with the big like Cthulhu like creature. That's kind of interesting, but here again, it's not like, oh wow to me. I mean, I didn't have that kind of reaction to the trailer.
Sure, right. So nothing really high. What about a low? Any real low?
I'm not sure about Woody Harrelson's character.
Yeah, right.
I
could see that.
But here again, like that low isn't that low. I mean, he could have proven me wrong, but I'm a little skeptical of his character.
Sure. Yeah. I think, but I mean, I think all of this actually speaks to the point that like, I don't think it's because it's too many Star Wars movies. I don't believe that for a second, because I mean, you just look at Black Panther and like, obviously people don't get sick of Marvel films, even though that is kind of a unique case, but
I would say we're not there yet, but we might get there one day. I'm kind of sensing a oncoming point of oversaturation, but we haven't hit it yet.
Well, I think what may happen, my personal belief of what'll happen more, or my personal opinion of what may happen more, is like this movie has to be good. And like, because I think if The Last Jedi and then Solo, like if these things aren't like winning everybody over, I think they could be in some real trouble, and they might like have to reassess stuff. And
I don't like how, but I mean, they've already announced, I mean, we'll talk about this more, but they've already announced all of these new movies that they're going to be doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and the thing, we'll get into it. Let's move on from that, because we're going to get into more of this later.
Yeah, actually we are, because something happened in Rebels that has me very concerned about what they could do with all this. But I mean, I will just say quickly, we do live in a world now where Hollywood doesn't just cancel films, they cancel entire universes.
Yeah.
Long after they've been announced and may even be well into production. I mean, it's a very strange time. So,
it is.
Anyway,
but at the same time, I kind of like, I mean, you do kind of get the sense that Disney feels like, they're treating Star Wars like they're Titanic.
Sure. Yeah.
It can't sink,
Yeah, right. That's fair.
But it could.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, which I can't. I can't believe I'm saying that. I mean,
I
like
know,
that's
I
just
know.
that's just so
I
weird.
believe me, I don't want to say it, and I will always. The thing, and the thing for me is that I've reached a state of inner peace with Star Wars where they could do anything they want to it, and I will still enjoy what I enjoy about Star Wars.
Exactly. Right. Right. No, certainly I'm the same way. I mean, because for me, I mean, even if Solo sucks, I'm still a huge Star Wars fan.
Right. They can't take that away from you.
Right. Before we were even recording this, I already ordered, and I haven't even seen the movie. I already ordered the Solo visual guide. I ordered the art book for Solo. I mean, like I don't know. Maybe it's a sunk cost fallacy, but I'm like, I'm in. They don't have to worry about me, but
right.
They're not just going to make this shit for me though.
Right.
So anyway, all right. Why don't we let's shift gears just a little bit to a time that, well, actually, it's probably not too far off of the time frame that the Solo movie is going to be taking place during, which I don't think we have an exact BBY date for when Solo is happening.
Yeah, I actually get the feeling that it might be before Rogue One.
That would fit. That'd be all right. So, well, anyway, but something that is definitely right before, like literally will end up, I think, moments before Rogue One, is Star Wars Rebels. Of course, this show, now it's in its 4th season. We are, as of this recording, which we are recording this on, oh hell, what is my watch doing? Anyway, it's the 27th, right? It's February 27th, 2018. Next week, we will get the final episodes of Star Wars Rebels, which blows my mind that's been going for 4 years. But anyway, so we're in kind of the second half. I've already reviewed in previous Patreon only Star Wars updates. I've reviewed the other episodes. I've been reviewing Rebels, right along. But now we're in the second half of the second chapter of season 4, and we're wrapping things up. We've had 4 episodes over the past couple of weeks, episode 10, 11, 12, and 13 of season 4. And we're going to talk about them because boy, has a lot of shit happened.
Oh yeah. I mean, they introduced so much new shit to this. I mean, Filoni's really pushing the envelope.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and I love Dave Filoni, any comments or negatives or concerns that I make over particularly these past 4 episodes. And me personally, I enjoyed the first half of season 4. I enjoyed it quite a bit, actually. But anything that I bring up here, I still love Dave Filoni no matter what, but I do have some qualms.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I've said it on your show, but I mean, in a lot of ways, and I'm going to have some criticisms about these episodes and about the writing, but I feel the same way that, Dave Filoni is probably one of the best creators that's kind of in Lucasfilm stable. And I've said before that, in my mind, Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy is the head of the company, but Filoni is the heir to the empire as far as I'm concerned, because he's the one that learned under George Lucas during that entire run of the Clone Wars. And George kind of really just kind of I think George just basically gave him the whole mythos and said, this is how Star Wars works. And Filoni gets it. I mean, he really gets it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start it off talking about episode 10 and 11, and then we'll talk about 12 and 13. And so 10 and 11, I mean, and look, spoiler alerts, folks. I mean, if you're listening to this, there's no way you're not listening to this and you didn't already watch this shit.
Right.
I mean,
and if you did, go watch it now. I mean, seriously. I mean, I do not care about spoilers, and I know Brian doesn't either, but I mean, don't fuck it up for yourself. Go watch it now.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the big thing, that happens with episode 10 and 11, and these episodes do play well off of each other, so they might as well be a singular whole. But, we lose Kanan. Kanan dies. I mean, that's it. Kanan Jarrus gone. Caleb Dune gone.
That happened a lot faster than I thought. It came up a lot sooner than I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, right into the second half.
Yeah,
We've been waiting months, and then boom, dead.
Yeah, people have been saying that since the show started because, there's that famous line that Yoda says that, that last of the Jedi you are, when he was talking to Luke. So, I mean, people just assume that, all the Jedi in this show have to die.
Yeah, Caleb can't be around, or Kanan can't be around.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we were all expecting it. but when it happened, I think it still kind of hit people. But anyway, why don't you go ahead, Robin, give me your take on episode 10 and 11.
So, I mean, obviously the big one's episode 10, because that's where Kanan dies. And, I had two different experiences of this episode. The first time I watched it, it definitely, I don't want to say it surprised me, but like I said, it kind of took me back that they decided to kill Kanan off this early in, the mid-season right off the bat. They just decide to hit you with it. And, I'm not ashamed to admit, I got misty eyed. I teared up. And I was a little depressed after the episode. And that was my, and initially I didn't have really kind of any problems with it, but, I ended up talking to somebody and they pointed out something to me, and it wasn't my experience of the episode, but what this person said, I can't disagree with it all. And she had a big problem with the episode, and that Hera, the way that character is treated in the episode, the writers pretty much just deprived her of any autonomy.
Yeah, she was drugged.
Yeah. And there's people online saying, shit like, oh, I love drunk Hera and she's so cute. That shit's not cute. I mean, if you've ever talked to somebody or been unfortunate to know somebody who is, been subjected to a date rape drug, that's some nasty shit that will fuck you up. I mean, and for them to put that in front of her declaring her love for Kanan really diminished that moment.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't think about that. I was thinking about the probe or the torture droid or whatever. Mm-hmm. I thought that killed the mystery. Like, I always, ever since I was a kid in episode 4, A New Hope, I was wondering, I'm like, what the hell did that probe actually do to Leia? Like it's just very ominous, and you have no idea, because all that happens in A New Hope is the door closes. You see it come in, and it's very scary, and Leia's like kind of like inching back and whatever. And I thought this kind of killed that mystery and sort of hurt A New Hope in that way, which is a film I already have personally, and I know I'm rare in this, that I have issues with it, but that was one of the things that I thought was really great about it, was a lot of the almost like Alfred Hitchcock kind of, we don't show you, but it's bad.
Yeah.
And I think that ruined it. But then that whole other level that you just described about where they're taking away Hera's like real agency and consciousness in a very real sense. That's nuts. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah, I mean, and here again, like her torture scenes were like, I think, even more prolonged than, what Kanan was tortured like in the first season, near the end, and I mean, I get it. They're playing up what's her name, Governor Price's sadisticness, and of course, if you read the Thrawn novel, you already know that she's an extremely sociopathic, sadistic person. Yeah. I do kind of feel like they overplayed it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a direction, there's so many things that they hold back on because it's a quote unquote kids show. Like, why go all the way with this one? I mean, like that did, I agree with you. That is, a lot of that I didn't think about. And that,
I was in the same boat. Like I said, somebody else pointed these things out to me, and I was just kind of, like I said, I kind of had I had to go back and watch it again. And I'm like, I cannot invalidate this person's experience of the episode, because it's completely valid. And I can see it 100%.
Yeah. I mean, this is an episode, these two episodes, I want to hear more of your take on them. For me, these were two episodes where like Rebels Recon really had to help me out to see a lot of what was going on. And I'm not a person that misses shit usually. Like, I mean, I'm really into fine detail. Mm-hmm. And like, just for a quick example, like when that Kanan's like his iris.
Oh yeah, his eyes change back. Yeah.
Like that was that was great. I had to go back and watch that again. I was like, wow, that's beautiful. But I didn't notice that happened the first time. Like it seemed to yeah, well, sure, right, but that's the thing, is that these episodes, it was a little annoying. I mean, I watch Rebels Recon, which is a show that this official Lucasfilm show that kind of covers what's in an episode. I watch them anyway because they always explain so much of what's going on.
Right.
But this is one where I felt I really, really needed it.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
That was one of the things during my first viewing of it that actually hit me really hard when his eyes come back. And because it was a callback to something that Hera had said to Kanan, and I think the early part of the season where they were splitting apart, and Kanan says something along the lines, "I wish I could see you," and Hera says to Kanan, "You could always see me."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. Yeah. So, well, I mean, what else did you feel about these episodes?
I think the next episode really, I mean, it didn't have a whole lot going with it, and that's okay too, because I think they realized people needed time to process.
Yeah, you're just dealing with the weight of Kanan dying.
Yeah, and the characters have to do it too. And I mean, and that is, I will say, like, actually the episode, what was it, episode 11, Doom. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a more authentic episode than the previous episode.
Sure, right. You didn't have anybody drugged and whatever.
Right. Yeah, and people were, dealing with the death both in healthy and unhealthy ways, which is, I mean, that's what, human beings, and not that all of them are human, but that's the way we deal with things. It's, some of us deal in a healthy way and process stuff, and other people go and beat shit up.
Yeah. With episode 11, the thing that sticks out for me. Episode 10, I'm going to watch that again with the mindset that you just described that some people had on it. And I like, just thinking about it first blush. Yeah, I get it. I understand what they're saying. And that's really unfortunate. But like with episode 10, I mean, I thought the death was done very well, all that's fine. But with episode 11, it took it. The thing that ruined it for me was like these fucking Loth wolves, like, I mean, give me something. And I really, I feel like, and even episode 12 and 13, or maybe, 12 and 13, which, explore it a little bit more. Like, I feel like we're getting absolutely nothing out of something I mean, I get it that Dave Filoni just likes wolves.
I was going to say that's some inside baseball shit for Dave Filoni and Dave Filoni alone.
But tell us, I mean,
right.
Like, it's a little too symbolic, and actually this is something that I've felt, I feel with Star Wars a lot, in that, and one of the things I actually love about the prequels is that George Lucas, I mean, he'll hit you over the head with a hammer as far as what's going on. I mean, there's no, and I know some people complain about this, right? Because I mean, it's not like Irvin Kershner where, he uses tremendous lighting in, an Empire Strikes Back to like, point out what's evil or what's hiding and stuff like this, as to where George Lucas is like, he's lining up spotlights everywhere, and saying, no, I'm not going to hide anything from you. You're going to see it all. In a real way, even though he tried to hide who Darth Sidious was, which is just stupid. But anyway, do
you remember that? Like, I mean, I'm sorry to, like, as an aside, but like, there was that whole crazy thing, like during the prequels, like especially before and after episode 1, and like people were actually debating whether Sidious and Palpatine were different people.
Right.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I mean, but he was, Lucas was shooting for that. Like, we know that.
I just, but here again, why?
Right.
It doesn't make any sense.
Right. It's like you mentioned the Titanic earlier. I mean, we already know the ending, for fuck's sake. Like, you don't have to hide shit.
Right.
We know what's going to happen. We know who Darth Vader is. So, but yeah, no, I hear you. But anyway, like, I think that there is just, and this is a problem across the next 2 episodes as well. Like I said, across 12 and 13, where way too much, like, I don't know, inside baseball and allegory and stuff that even Rebels Recon isn't really explaining. And
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, Star Wars has done this before. I mean, you and I both know all the kind of esoteric shit that's built in to the mythology.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think there might have been a time where a little bit of that was so, but like Lucas, I think, was, especially when the prequel era hit, no more. Like, as soon as you introduce the midichlorians, he's like, oh no, I can explain the Force. You're not going to get away with saying it's God or anything like that.
So here's scientific. Here's something that a lot of people might not know, but the midichlorians have been around since 77.
Well, go ahead and explain.
Yeah, so I've been reading J.W. Rinsler's The Making of Star Wars,
Oh
which
yeah.
this is a fantastic if you're going to be a Star Wars historian, you need to go and read that book along with The Secret History of Star Wars,
Yeah,
because
that book's
there's
amazing.
all kinds of shit in those books that like a lot of people don't know. And George Lucas, as he was, I don't, maybe it was 78, but he, after the first movie, and he was absolutely sure that he was going to go on and make more, because he already had the intention from the beginning to make it a trilogy. But after it was kind of already like a sure thing that he was going to get to do all these movies, he kind of laid down a lot of this sort of like back mythology. And I don't know that, I think he did actually use the word midichlorians, but he did explain that midichlorians were microscopic, things in your blood cells that connected you to the Force. So that's been around a lot longer than people realize.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing, is that like he had kind of an explanation. I mean, the only thing that thwarts what I'm saying is that the Mortis trilogy, which we'll be talking about, the Mortis trilogy is like hyper esoteric, like
right.
But
that was all George too.
No, right. But I mean, like, I challenge, and I've read really lengthy, diatribes and expositions and everything on what people think all of that meant. But I think anybody's theories are almost bullshit. Like I've given up on trying to even, and I watched them over. They're probably, next to the Star Wars movies, the Mortis trilogy is the most watched thing of Star Wars that I've watched, because I've really tried to understand what the hell's being said here.
Yeah. And so here's another thing that you learn about George when you start reading sort of a lot of this kind of inside story of the making of Star Wars, is that George sort of peppers these things in to Star Wars to give the appearance of meaning, but he doesn't necessarily have a lot of meaning built into it.
Right. Yeah. And I can totally believe that, I mean, yeah. There's a huge conversation to have around that. And that actually even points at the role-playing game that we mentioned earlier.
Right. But we'll have that conversation someday.
Yeah, definitely. So, but in any case, like I really enjoyed the fact that at least during the prequel era, like George Lucas, there were no real secrets. Like, I mean, he was just, what was on the screen was on the screen, and you knew what was happening. There really wasn't a lot. I mean, to the point of where it almost felt cardboard for some people. It was so blatant. And
sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a little bit different experience of that, since I kind of grew up like with the kind of the expanded universe of the fans that surrounded it. There was even back then, because before the internet, you had what were Star Wars zines.
Yep.
And there was a lot of people who did discuss this kind of stuff. Like I said, that George sort of peppered in, and George did lay a lot of hints about the prequel movies even before the original trilogy was completed. And there was all kinds of fan theories and fan fiction surrounding that stuff. So, I mean, to a degree, I do have to challenge that a bit, because it has been around for quite a while.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that, like, I feel like you weren't, I never felt in episode 1, 2, or 3. I never, maybe a little bit with episode 1, maybe because he was setting up the trilogy, the prequel trilogy. But I never felt like I walked away with wondering, what the fuck did that mean? Like what was that? I mean, like the rule of 2, I wondered about, but other than even that, like, I got it. Okay. So there's 2 people. Like it was still very blatant, I think. I think
the other moment you get that in was the opera scene in Revenge of the Sith. That kind of laid out a little bit of stuff that kind of,
but even that was like straight to. No, I agree, but that was straight to head. Like I know what that means, is that, okay, so there was this guy Darth Plagueis who could raise people from the dead. All right, I can't make a 1-sentence description of a scene with the Mortis trilogy like that.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, and this is true for a lot of stuff that has gone on under Filoni's watch with both Clone Wars and Rebels, where like I can't put it into a sentence, and it's fine, but that kind of bothers me, and especially when, like when the trailer for the second half of season 4 hit, and we saw I know we have other stuff we need to talk about, and we saw the Mortis gods, which that's what they're calling them now. Originally, George called them force wielders. That was it.
Right.
I was like, oh, great, we're going to get some kind of fucking explanation and all this stuff. And like, oh, man, the wolves, okay, looks like there's cool stuff going on with the Loth wolves. We're going to get some explanation of the Loth wolves and everything. And like, yeah. I'm not feeling any of that.
See, I didn't have that expectation because I already know the formula. So yeah, I've learned to temper my expectations.
Sure.
When it comes to this kind of stuff, because like I said, I know how George operates, and I know that Filoni's kind of using the same playbook.
Right. Yeah. Okay. No, I mean that's totally fair, but man, it's what I want. I know.
Really no, I do, and don't get me wrong, I want that too.
Yeah,
I totally want that. I just, like I said, I see what's going on behind the scenes, so I have to kind of rein it in a little.
Sure. All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, no, I understand that. So, okay, with episode 10 and 11, did you have any other major thoughts you wanted to get out there?
No, I think we covered, Yeah.
My main thing was, like I said, I had to watch Rebels Recon to catch a lot of, not that it was bad when I first watched both episodes, but especially episode 10. Not that they were bad, but like there was a lot of stuff going on that I thought was like that I didn't catch the first time that was really well done in that. But the part that wasn't really well done, like again, I'll say it again, these fucking Loth wolves, like give me a little something. But anyway, so let's move on to episode 12 and 13. And this is a situation, I think, where Star Wars starts to get pretty weird again.
Yeah.
And,
to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, and what's really weird is there's so much I love of what happens in these episodes, and then there's a ton that bothers me. I'm not going to say I hate it. I'm fine with the fact that it exists. It's not like any other science fiction or space opera or fantasy doesn't have it either. But the first thing that stuck out for me, and it took me a little while, is you get this guy, which in these episodes, people have watched them, I'm sure, so they know what it's all about. But they're trying, they're on Lothal and they're trying to get to the Jedi Temple and everything. You encounter this very unique looking Imperial character, and his name's Minister Hayden, Varys Hayden, actually. And the whole time I'm hearing this guy talk, I'm like, who is this guy? I know that voice. Like, I know it really, really well. And it took me forever to think of who the hell it was. And then finally it hit me that it was Malcolm McDowell. And I'm not sure at what point it finally.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that. Yeah.
And I mean, it was taking me for.
He and Ian McDermott are friends too.
Well, that's right, exactly. And that's why I think he was there. I think.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, comes back to voice the Emperor.
Right.
I can't imagine, like, how do you hire Malcolm McDowell right now? I mean, this guy's a fucking legend. And I think that's what happened. Is pretty much, him and Ian are drinking buddies.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, why don't you appear in Star Wars, which is cool on a lot of levels for me, because my favorite role for Mark Hamill actually isn't Luke Skywalker. In fact, I've tweeted at Mark Hamill about this, and he gave it a heart and all that, which that lit up my life. Where I said, I was like, look, Mark, I was like, I know you're Luke Skywalker and everybody's digging you right now. I said, but baby, you'll always be the Heart of the Tiger to me. Which is Heart of the Tiger was his character in the Wing Commander video game series of Colonel Blair. And Colonel Blair's foil and boss at points is Admiral Tolan, who is played by Malcolm McDowell. And so it's really nice. And it shocked me because I was like, wow, how did Star Wars never even try to get Malcolm McDowell in this before? Because it would have just been a nice little piece of synergy. But it's sad that him and Mark Hamill couldn't work together in Star Wars, because that would have been a dream come true for me. Yeah. Just for my Wing Commander sensibilities. But anyway, that, like, as soon as that hit me, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I was just so happy to hear Malcolm McDowell. But these episodes certainly, just to get this out there, the production level, the direction, everything going on in these two episodes was phenomenal. The voice acting, everything was top tier. As much as I'm going to complain about a bunch of shit, and I think you are too, Robin. Like this was top tier production, no doubt about it. Having Ian McDiarmid back to play the Emperor, and I was curious. I was like, because we knew that from the trailer that the Emperor was going to be in this. I was wondering. I was like, how is this going to work? Like that just doesn't seem to fit. But it fit, and it worked, and you believed it. And as soon as you hear the Emperor laugh, like you knew it was Ian McDiarmid, and it wasn't what's Pretty Boy's name there? That's terrible.
I know. Yeah. Because he's Sam Witwer.
Yeah, Sam Witwer. I mean, like, guy's my total man crush.
I know, he's awesome.
Forget his name. He's the perfect man. He's incredible. But it was amazing how easily you could tell the difference between the two, because he usually since the Clone Wars he's been voicing Emperor Palpatine or Darth Sidious at the time, whatever. And
it's so strange too, because when I heard Ian McDiarmid's voice, I almost had a reaction like, that's not quite right.
Yeah,
how fucked up is that? Is that I'm so used to Sam Witwer doing the voice of the Emperor. When the actual Emperor comes on, I'm like, that's not sounding quite right to me. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah. But it was cool. And the way that they use the character, and maybe we'll see more of it, I don't know, in the next 3 episodes. But I thought the callback to and they're kind of skipping ahead bit, but like where their Emperor is like, doing his magic at that, cauldron from like he had in the Clone Wars, and he's doing the Sith speech and everything. That was so cool. Yeah. No, I agree.
And like you said, the production values on that so high. My other high point with the production values on this episode was the 2D animation of the murals. That was so beautiful, just really well done.
Yeah. They brought in on Rebels Recon. They said they brought in a whole separate team.
Right.
Like they hired like outside of ILM or whoever's doing all that business. They hired out to do it.
It shows that they pulled out all the stops for that part of the episode because it was good.
Yeah, I agree. It worked as much as, and the mural, of course, is of the Mortis gods that we were mentioning with the Mortis trilogy. As much as it didn't answer shit, not really anyway. It was. I agree with you. It was beautifully done. That's the thing. Like, regardless of what we say about these episodes, these were like just top notch. With so much, and bringing in the Emperor helped too. I've said this many times. Is I think the really great Star Wars is when the Emperor comes on the scene. Anytime, I think it takes it to the next level, because you just that feeling of malevolence that just his presence brings on is unmatched, maybe in character history of any kind, not just Star Wars. And I think having him in this definitely took it all to another level and made you feel it was a lot more serious. And then even for his underling, Minister Heinen to be Malcolm McDowell, like I thought that was like, I mean, you just felt the gravitas, just coming off of it. It was really something.
And we actually got hints of that this was coming a long time ago in Rebels, because I don't know if you remember the character of Minister Tua.
Yeah.
Who was the kind of Imperial underling who was watching over Lothal while Governor Price was gone. And at the end, she kind of defects. And she ends up getting killed. But before she dies, she tells Hera that there's a secret on Lothal that the Emperor himself is interested in.
Right.
And they kind of leave that dangling for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And then we finally find out.
Yeah, I mean, this is where Filoni is in these 2 episodes. Filoni's plan, like his overarching plan, really shines.
Right.
I think one of the most brilliant things done in these episodes was showing the season 2 finale, the battle between Vader and Ahsoka.
Yeah, that was so good.
Yeah, because that is still. I mean, and maybe the next 3 episodes will change it, but to this day, in my opinion, that is the Rebels high note of all time. I mean, like that was, I don't know how you could match it.
Me personally, that is like one of the highlights of all of Star Wars, period.
Sure.
Sure.
Yep.
I mean, just in terms of kind of like gravitas to the scene and emotional impact, like I have never been more emotional watching Star Wars than the last 10 minutes of the Twilight of the Apprentice.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't argue that for a second. I agree. And I think it was brilliant to do. As much as I'm going to complain about time travel when we get to it, it was brilliant to do a callback on that.
Yeah.
Like if you're going out, if the show's ending, remind everybody just how awesome some of these moments were in this show.
Yeah. And I have some questions about that in terms of the time travel, because I mean, like, it really kind of, we'll get to it, but it kind of messes with my mind a little. They have some answering to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So I mean, I hit all my most of my high notes as far as, with these two episodes. So if you want to hit on some high notes, and then maybe we'll get in some lows.
Yeah, with the so here again, playing from the same George Lucas, playbook, Filoni, again starts dropping some esoteric hints with the Mortis Gods mural there. Sure. And that the initial start out with the stone tablet of the hands. And I don't know if you picked up on this, but sort of like the light side is the right hand path.
Oh, yeah.
And the dark side of the force is the closed fist, the closed fist path. And then you have the father who's, kind of like almost doing sort of like the Jesus, hand,
Yeah, definitely a lot of like almost occult symbolism there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would say it's overtly occult. Kind of like, And here again, I don't think it particularly means anything. I think it's put in there to give the appearance of meaning.
Yeah, I mean, and like, this is the one thing that we know at least that they were trying to do with the original Mortis trilogy from the Clone Wars, was playing off of how so many religions on Earth have this chosen one.
Right.
Myth, and it was putting all of that together into one moment. So I mean, we know that they try to do that. We know that they play with religious symbolism really hard, or at least they're willing to.
Right.
And I agree that this is one of those cases. But yeah, keep going.
And so, where was I? So, and that's really the only thing that kind of stands out to me in episode 12.
Mm-hmm.
Here again,
real quick, where did wow, that's terrible. Where did she suddenly become like some translator? When did she become Daniel Jackson from Stargate? Like, how did that?
Well, she's no. That makes sense because she's an artist. She studied art.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. All right. You got it.
I will tell you the one thing that bothered me about the episode is that Ezra's the one that was pointing out the convor, even though Sabine's the one that wears the convor on her goddamn armor.
Right.
Why wasn't Sabine the one to notice that?
Yeah. Good point. Yep. Yeah, that's fair. So, all right. Well, like I say, keep going.
Okay. So, like I said, that was pretty much, I mean, and episode 12 was really just kind of setting us up for 13, which is really kind of where all the action is.
Yep.
So you have Ezra going into the temple, which is obviously, not the interior of the temple that we saw in season 2, with the exception of when they're doing like their meditated force vision.
Yeah, and I mean, the similarities.
It does kind of, when Ezra was talking to Yoda in the temple, it did kind of have the same appearance as the interior of the temple in this episode.
Right.
But I mean, and this is kind of all new thing for Star Wars, is this concept of sort of like, I mean, is this like a pocket dimension? Is it a place outside of time, and that's how it's able to connect to different time periods? And when like, and how does Ezra and Ahsoka know? A big spoiler. I mean, Ahsoka comes back. Ezra saves Ahsoka's life.
Yeah,
because he goes through the portal during her duel with Vader. And she kind of like breaks the floor in front of Vader, and he pulls her out just as Vader's swinging down at her, which I thought that was cool. I mean, I applaud that. Yeah, and here again, like you said, like, I mean, that's kind of like a huge payoff for people who've been watching for a long time, and like Filoni knows how much that scene in the second season, at the end of the second season, meant to us. And like, he knew he had to have some sort of payoff to kind of like Ahsoka's appearance at the end of that episode, walking into the Malachor temple.
Right, which we get a very clear-cut explanation of what that last scene from originally was.
Now the question I have about that is, okay, is when Ahsoka went back to Malachor, is she going back in time to shortly before she left, or is she going at the same time that the events of the episode are taking place?
Right, and then where has she been the past 2 years?
Right, yeah. So if she appears back in time just shortly after the duel with Vader, and Ezra says, "Come find me," well, obviously she hasn't done that.
Right.
And but at the same time, if she's going through the portal back to Malachor to the same time period that the episode takes place, well, how do the mechanics of the time travel work? That doesn't make sense.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about this time travel. Let's talk about this. I mean, the idea of, so the name of episode 13 was what, like a world between worlds or something?
Yeah,
was the name of it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that they are playing off of, Saint Augustine's old idea of that God exists outside of space and time, and that's how he knows everything that's going to happen, because he's the traffic helicopter that can see two cars are about to hit each other when the two people in the cars don't know. And I feel like that's what they're playing on, and I don't necessarily have a problem with, like, in the abstract, I don't have a problem with that idea, but I think there's a part of me that has really appreciated the fact that Star Wars actually, and I love time travel. I use it in my own work. I mean, or, in my own fiction and everything. I'm a big fan, and of like changing things. But I've actually always loved the fact that Star Wars, more other than a couple times in the expanded universe, I've loved the fact that they've stayed away from it and that they don't touch it, and that when shit happens, it happens and it's stuck. And here's my big problem with this. Like, I agree, there's logistical issues around what happened with Ahsoka. We're only going to know when. And my great, I mean, I'm glad Ahsoka's alive. Like, I wanted that to be a thing, and I said that long ago. And I wouldn't mind if the next animated series is all about Ahsoka. Please, like, I'll take that all day long. So I mean, I get the logistical problems around that. My concern is this: the creation of this MacGuffin, the creation of this dimension. We'll just call it that for now. Where everything, I mean, because when, and it's really cool because you're hearing Rey talking, you're hearing, I mean, like, there's a bunch of what, Luke, Obi-Wan.
Right. Yeah. They played out audio from all throughout the Star Wars. I mean, there was stuff from the Clone Wars. There was stuff from the prequels. There was stuff from the original trilogy. Yeah. There was stuff from the sequel trilogy. I mean, they mixed it all in there. Right.
And that's cool in one regard. But then at the same time, like, my problem here is this creates a cheat, it creates a cheat where you could bring back anybody from the dead.
It literally is a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, right.
I mean, and it makes you wonder, okay, is there a God in the Star Wars universe? And I'm not really comfortable with that idea.
No, me neither. Even though,
because I mean, who built this pocket dimension? Where did these structures that are, in this space come from? Yeah. I don't like that there's time travel in Star Wars right now. I'll just say that flat out. And I don't like how it even works, because again, you could just, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. I don't even know how it works. I can't. Yeah. How can I even argue with it when I don't even fucking know how it works?
Well, what's really weird, and I want to call out Filoni on this, and I'd love to talk to him for 5 seconds, because the first thing I'd say is that fucking owl, is that the sorceress from He-Man, and is that Castle Grayskull? Because that's all that that's exactly. I mean, Castle Grayskull is like the ultimate literary tool. People have no idea. The Stargate has nothing on Castle Grayskull, on what they can do. And this feels like Star Wars is, Castle Grayskull, where you can go to any world, anytime, and create any kind of hijinks or problem that you want. And I don't it was fine for He-Man, right? Because it wasn't that serious. But Star Wars, can be serious as a heart attack. And you get reminded very much of that when you re-experience the battle between Ahsoka and Darth Vader in it. And so to have this, I feel like it's just a huge cheat In something like I said, if Star Wars was way more, I mean, its humor can be tongue in cheek, but Star Wars itself is not tongue in cheek. Again, also the reactions to The Last Jedi should prove that to anybody. Okay, like this kind of plot device shouldn't exist in this universe, in my opinion. And so that's the way it was done, the way it was executed. The episodes were awesome. Like I really, really enjoyed myself watching these. And it's definitely some of the best episodes of Rebels ever, and some of Star Wars' best moments in this. But at the same time, the fact that very plot device exists, I mean, because and this is something I was hinting at earlier when we were talking, was that now you could Disney in 10 years, say Disney completely fucks shit up, right, with Star Wars, and like they just keep making bomb after bomb of movies, that don't do well in theaters. They could use this to completely reset the universe.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, and I can't help but feel like they did that on purpose. And I think that's shitty. Like, I don't know. I don't like that this is here.
Yeah. I don't know that they did it on purpose, but I can see why you would feel that way. And I'm not entirely disagreeing with you here. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if we never see this again, ever.
Yeah, some people are.
My biggest problem, like I said, with it, and here again, I don't disagree with your arguments about the time travel, but here again, it's just kind of like I do feel it's like it's kind of a fluke. It's almost like it's too big of a sword for anybody to wield.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
So I mean, it could be, it could be used to great destructive effect if they decide to, implement this again. But I mean, like I think if Filoni remains in charge of it, you'll either only get hints about it or we're never going to hear about it again.
Yeah. And I get that. And some people have been saying already, I've heard commentators saying that, well, now that the temple's gone, like that's over. We're not going to see that again. But
I mean, like, because it's implied within the space itself that there's multiple connections throughout the universe to this thing. So, I mean,
well, right. That and the fact is that it seems like the Emperor really wants this.
Right.
And so that's where I feel this is going to come back.
Because
if the Emperor wants it that bad, you don't just sort of let that go.
And that's kind of like my problem with this whole thing is not so much the element itself, it's all the implications that come with it that are problematic.
Yeah. I mean, we had the episode in season 3, I think, where you have that exchange between Yoda and Ezra. Which, by the way, I mean, it's one of my favorite moments in Rebels. I think what Yoda says about the Jedi and everything was some of the most brilliant. In fact, it's actually great philosophy that he brings up.
Right.
Like no, I agree. War and things like that. Barriss Offee was right.
Well, when he says, it's not a question of whether you choose to fight or not. It's how you choose.
Yeah, exactly.
To wage your wars. I mean, I think that's a question everybody needs to ask themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's the age-old, do the ends justify the means? Well, Yoda says, no, they don't. And I agree with him.
Yeah.
But in that, like, if Yoda could access that temple, which it would appear that he could, or if he was even accessing that world between worlds, I mean, like he wasn't tempted to try and save the Jedi. Like he knew. I mean, like I would have accessed it, and I would have put a stop to Chancellor or to Senator Palpatine, long before, the Emperor would ever be a thing. It's amazing that I don't know. I like the way you put it, that it's too big a sword for anybody to mess with, because for any writer, because it's too much.
Well, and here's the other thing too, and I'm it's occurring to me, it's not the first time Filoni's done this. Because you got in the lost episodes of the Clone Wars, that planet that was kind of like the foci of the Force.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the divergence between the cosmic and the living force.
The living force, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and so if you're questioning about how Yoda got access to it, I'm sure that has something to do with it. But here again, we've never heard about that planet again. And
Right.
I don't think we will. And I think as long as he treats it the same way, it'll be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess if it never comes back, then fine. And is, and admittedly, like, and this goes against my ends justify the means statement, but like anything to bring Ahsoka back, great,
Well, I mean, he had to. And I don't know if you caught this, but I can't remember if it was, I think it was during the Celebration Europe, Filoni was being his usual trickster god self.
Was this the t-shirt?
Yeah. So if people don't know about this, Filoni comes out at the beginning of his panel wearing a t-shirt that says Ahsoka lives, big question mark.
Right.
And then at the end of the panel, when they show the trailer for the upcoming new season of season 3 of Rebels, Filoni's kind of like hiding behind the couch, and he must have like gone backstage and changed shirts while the trailer is playing it. And just as everything is about closing, they're wrapping everything up, Filoni stands up and he's wearing this t-shirt that says "Ahsoka lives!" exclamation mark.
Right.
It's a
exactly.
declarative statement.
Yeah. Yeah, which that was awesome. Like that.
Yeah,
that
it was
so cool. Yeah, when the creators are willing to have fun like that, I mean, that's priceless.
And that's one of the things I love about Filoni is that he is a benevolent troll.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, no, it is. It's cool. So anyway, okay. So with Rebels, or with episodes 12 and 13, what else do you got besides, I mean, definitely the time travel and Ahsoka and everything. I mean, like those are the big stuff and the voice acting and everything. But,
yeah.
What else did you have?
That was about, I mean, that pretty much covers most of it for me. Like I said, the big moment for me was Ahsoka coming back and getting the payoff to that the end of that battle between her and Vader. To me, that was the high point. Low point, like all the stuff we talked about was with the funkiness with the time travel, and just, I mean, it's sort of fun to speculate about these things, but I think that's all it's ended up going to be on the part of like the fans' involvement with this. Just it's going to be speculation, and it's going to continue like that forever.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. Like, best case scenario is that it never gets touched again.
Right.
And I mean, unless somebody wants, like, if they want to give a creation story about it, like if they want to say how it started, thousands or I don't know. I don't think they'd ever even do that. But like, I'd be open to that.
Well, I mean, they might, because they kind of did that in the EU with the what was the name of that series of comic books that Dark Horse did?
That was at the end.
Yeah, that was at the very end, and they kind of
Dawn of the Jedi.
Right, and they kind of explored, where the Jedi came from. Well, even then they didn't explain everything, because they had these like the Yothor ships, and they just came out of nowhere and collected all the Force sensitives
and dropped them on this planet.
Right, and like, where did those come from?
Yeah,
where
are those ships? Yeah, I know. I was so excited for that.
I know.
And then they're like, okay, we're going to see how this all begins, and then like it opens up with just another mystery. It's like, ooh,
yeah. And then I think it was literally like when that series ended, like Disney bought Star Wars, and it was like, well, that's so much for that.
Yeah, I mean, and just as well. And that was one of the things where I was like, okay, good, reset the EU. Because, I mean, even in the story, they didn't really give you any origins. The only thing that was cool was they had that, like, hybridized mantra between, like, light and dark. You know, and they were playing with the whole gray potentium.
And that all that stuff came from George Lucas's notes, too. The stuff about the Ashla and the Bogan. And those were those were George Lucas's original names for the light and dark side of the Force. And like the character of Bendu in Rebels, that was part of the original name of the Jedi, because they're originally called the Jedi Bendu. Yeah. So I mean, like it is kind of interesting, like I said, going back and digging into the history of Star Wars, because you do see all of the echoes that have gone through Star Wars and are now reappearing.
Yeah. Well, you just brought up something that also I don't think we're getting a payoff here with Rebels, the Bendu. Like,
I didn't think we were gonna. I mean, I'm pretty sure that what was it, season 3 that they ended his storyline.
Yeah.
I think that is it. I don't think
crazy because I don't think we really got. I didn't feel like we really got anything.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, he's the man in the middle.
Yeah, the one in the middle. All right. Well, anyway, so yeah, we'll for the March Star Wars update, of course, we'll wrap up talking about Rebels, and I think we'll talk about the last 3 episodes that are coming out next week, and we will. I think it'd be good to give a whole like series retrospective. At that point too. So we'll talk about that then. You want to change things up? Are you all set
Sure.
to move on? All right.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. So these will, because the show's run a little long, not that I mind, but we'll kind of rapid fire some of this. And you got the chance to go to Secrets of the Empire VR.
Yes.
Tell me about this. I want to know, like, I'm a big fan of virtual reality, and obviously I'm a big fan of Star Wars, so this would seem to be a match made in heaven, but tell me about it. Tell me about the reality.
It was, it's a very short experience. It's only about 20 minutes.
Okay.
And, you could argue whether or not, 20 minutes of entertainment is worth $30, but I would say, like, if you're Star Wars sweaty, it is. It's definitely worth your money. So the way it works is we bought our tickets online, and they have a set time to go in, and you kind of you bring your cell phone in with the QR code, and they kind of log you in. And the thing I really liked about it is they kind of, I don't know if you've ever been to like Disney parks with like Star Wars rides, like Star Tours and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
they kind of play a similar thing where they sort of like immerse you in the universe right off the bat. So they kind of
when you're walking into the ride.
So when you're walking in, they have basically a mission briefing given to you by Cassian Andor from Rogue One, which is really kind of nice because it immediately tells you when and where you are in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, right. So this is like pre-Rogue One.
Right.
Yeah.
And so so your mission is that you're going to infiltrate this Imperial base where they've tracked this secret package that the Empire is delivering to Mustafar, and they don't know what it is, but they know it has something to do with the Jedi. So you go in and you get this mission briefing, and you're supposed to be like a undercover or a infiltration. So you get this screen that comes up, and you get to choose a stormtrooper outfit of a color of your choosing. With the shoulder pads that have the different colors. So everybody picks out a different color, so you can all tell who's who within the experience. Okay. And then they take you back, and they suit you up with the chest thing and the VR helmet and all this, and they kind of run you through all the checks about how it works and stuff, and then they stick you in this room that kind of looks like a shuttle loading area.
Okay,
and that's when they turn the VR on. And you get like a minute or so of just kind of like getting your bearings, and you can see your friends. They look like stormtroopers, and and there are some like technical quirks to it because I was kind of playing around with it. And like if you go into it and like you stick your hands together, like the VR the program kind of gets confused, and it starts like merging your hands together in this blob or something, and then you pull them apart, and it's kind of funny. And my friend was kind of doing like the meme of the stormtrooper thrusting his hips, and that was kind of funny. Right. Yeah. So then they kind of open the shuttle door, and you walk in, and then you see they load you into this Imperial shuttle, which is cool, and they've got K2SO there.
Okay.
And he's kind of like, explaining, like re-explaining the mission to you. And he's going to be coming along to help you out because he's an Imperial droid. And so he'll fit in. And it's kind of cool because they actually put in kind of like a mannequin of K2SO that's made out of metal and everything. So you can touch him and feel him, and it feels real, which is it was a nice touch for immersion.
Sure. So almost a mixed reality experience.
Yeah,
More so than just VR. Sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And they have some other elements like that too. Like, since you're on Mustafar, it's this lava planet. So like they'll have these blasts of heat that'll hit you.
Right.
From, like,
originally from episode 3.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they'll have stuff like that. But beyond that point, it's just kind of like a generic sort of like, it kind of reminds me of, what was the name of those games from the 90s, where it was like quick time events? I can't remember.
Oh, like QuickTime VR?
Rebel Assault.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of sort of a Rebel Assault thing. It was kind of basically a basic Star Wars shoot 'em up. You set off the alarms and the stormtroopers come in, and so you're shooting your stormtroopers, and they have things where like if they hit you, you feel a little buzzing on the chest piece that they put on you.
Oh, okay.
So it feels like
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's and for me, like I have a history in computer animation, and I've been playing video games all my life, so I didn't get as immersed as some of the people that were with me, and that's okay. But I mean, I don't have any technical knocks to it. The system works really well. Sure. I see a lot of potential for it. And so the only other thing that happens is, like I said, they send you in, the alarms go off, you shoot stormtroopers, and they have this one scene where you're shooting like these giant bugs that are coming out of the lava and spinning like lava balls at you, and you can shoot the lava balls before they hit you. And then you go in and like you walk into the base, and like there's this big chasm, and on the other side of the chasm is this crate that you're after, the secret package. And the guy like who's leading you along, there's another guy dressed up in a shore trooper outfit, and he's like an MP. He's not a real character. He's not a real person. He's just a digital character. Okay. And he opens the crate and he pulls out like this weird lightsaber thing. And the reason that it's kind of like a unique saber is because instead of, like normal lightsaber, when you ignite it and the blade comes out of the hilt, this one, like the blades are actually physical pieces, like an actual sword. And then like the blade ignites like on those. It's almost looks like a tuning fork almost, because like there's two like prongs that come out of it where these blades are, and it ignites. And as soon as the guy pulls it out of the box, Vader shows up and he disables your weapons, and he takes the sword and stabs the guy in the back, and and
so Vader some kind of like ancient Force artifact.
Yeah, and that's all the explanation that you get, because Vader basically grabs the thing and takes off with it.
Right. Okay. Well, I could dig that. That's all right. Something I loved, an EU idea kind of along those lines that I really loved, was that like the Jedi and the Sith used to have actual swords, and the swords were like laced with something to where they could, or like the Sith I think had it more, and they were laced with something that it could actually refract against a lightsaber when it would make contact, even though it was like a physical sword. Yeah. So I can get behind those sort of ideas. That's cool.
And they I think they like later kind of retconned this, but I remember like in the Tales of the Jedi they had those like the original lightsabers
with the backpacks.
The backpacks, and they had the wire come to the backpack into the bottom of the lightsaber.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Ula Keldroma running around with those. Yeah. That was kind of cool. I didn't mind.
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it was cool. It was kind of silly, but it was cool.
Yeah. No, that was all right. So well, maybe it was like the really, because there was like two phases to Tales of the Jedi. There was like the really ancient golden age of the Sith, and then there was like the time of Ula Keldroma and Exar Kun.
Right. Yeah, I think the ones with the backpacks was like the really ancient times. But the weird thing, like I said, they kind of retconned that, because we were talking about the Dawn of the Jedi, and they had lightsabers in those, and those didn't need power packs.
Right. They were completely independent.
It was like, okay.
Yeah, what the fuck? Anyway.
Right.
They went through the world between worlds. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that sounds cool. If I'm ever like at a, in the area of something like that, I would totally check that out. I mean, that's,
I definitely recommend it. Like I said, I think it's definitely worth $30 for a cool Star Wars afternoon. It'll definitely give you, something cool to experience and talk about with your friends. I don't regret it.
Sure. Awesome. All right. Well, let's switch gears. We've got two more topics I think we want to get into, and yeah, I think we've got time for them. So we'll talk about it. Yeah, this could be pretty short. We'll talk about the comic books that are going on right now.
Yeah.
Started off with the DJ comic that came out end of January that I didn't get to review in the last Star Wars update. This was
disappointing.
Yeah, disappointing. Like, I don't like. There's not much to say. Like it just.
I mean, it didn't really expand on his character at all. It was just a stupid, sort of like typical casino heist sort of story. I mean, that story could have taken place in any universe, and it wouldn't matter. Had no impact at all. It was just.
Yeah, it's just like everything else that has to do with Canto Bight.
And the most interesting part of the comic book was a character that was only in it for like 2 scenes, and that was the droid.
Right.
And that was it. That was the only interesting part about that whole goddamn comic book.
Yeah, when I was really hopeful because it's like, oh, I love the ideology and like the philosophy of the character.
And they didn't mention that at all. They just dropped that.
No, and you got, again, this is that Star Wars marketing that we're callous to now, is that they made such a big deal out of Benicio del Toro being in The Last Jedi. And then it's at the end of the day, it's meaningless. And then even when they try to expand on the character, it's even more meaningless and just makes it worse.
Yeah.
I have a really bad taste in my mouth because of that comic book. And I was looking forward to it. Like, people can listen back to the Star Wars update. And like last month where I said, it's like, oh, I wish I could have, done the Star Wars update after that comic came out, because I'm really excited for this. And I mean, it was just a joke. And like, I'd love to talk to somebody there saying, what are you guys doing? And this is the same review I had for the Canto Bight book, the novel that came, or the anthology that came out in December.
Yeah, which I haven't even read.
Yeah, don't bother. I mean, because like, and it's the exact same point that you had made initially that I made back in December. I was like, they could have literally have just taken like some kind of Vegas hijinks book from the 1960s and just replaced the names, and it would have been, and turned, and just put in Star Wars jargon, and it would have been it would have been that novel. Like, it was so not Star Wars. It was so, I mean, it didn't have anything going for it.
Yeah.
No, totally unoriginal. I mean, not that Star Wars is necessarily original, but I mean, like, it was even a bad remix as far as remixes go.
It was negative original.
Yeah, exactly. So, so the DJ comic, not much to say.
Yeah, skip it.
Yeah. Okay, so then let's real quick. This is only one issue in the Thrawn comic. Did you read this?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the comicization of the Thrawn novel that you mentioned earlier.
This is like, if you go and if you can only pick one Star Wars thing to buy this month, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. And I cannot say enough good things about the art in this book.
Yep.
I've made a lot of complaints about Star art and Star Wars comic books. This has it. This like Marvel, if you're listening, get Luke Ross to do all your comic book art for Star Wars, because and maybe older people will recognize this, but he's really playing off of sort of like the old school Al Williamson art style from the Star Wars comic strips back in the 80s. He's got that style down, and it is so good. It is so Star Wars.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, no,
and go follow him on Twitter too, because he posts art stills from the book that are actually in the black and white inkings, and they look even better than they do in the comic. Like, you really get that impression of that Al Williamson style from those black and white stills.
Actually, when you just said that, I would love, sometimes this happens, like they've done Batman black and white, Ninja Turtles black and white, Grendel black and white. And particularly when they would do Grendel or some of these other ones, the only color they'd put in besides black and white would be red. I would love to read like a director's cut version of the Thrawn comic where it's all black and white except for his eyes, which are just the red. And I bet that would be haunting as fucking shit.
Yeah. But like I said, this was such a good book. I mean, like the novel, we already know the novel's good, but I mean, they really upped their game. I mean,
Yeah, I agree. And this didn't even need to exist, amazingly.
No,
Like,
no, it
I
didn't.
thought the novel was, Timothy Zahn's novel. It's to date for me personally, it's my number one Star Wars novel.
Yeah,
Right
I'm
now.
not normally not that big on adaptations. In
Mhm.
fact, Luke Ross, who did the art in this book, did the Force Awakens adaptation, and his art is nowhere near as good in that book. I mean, he pulled out all the stops for this book. He upped his game. He just, I mean, he you can tell he poured his heart and soul into it, and it shows.
Yeah, and the timing's nice because I think it's either a 5 or 6 issue series that they're doing, and it's going to the last issue will come out right before the new Thrawn book comes out this year,
Right.
Which is really exciting. And I agree with everything you said. I don't even really have anything to add. I just thought it was so well done.
Yeah,
and the one thing I do look forward to, and it'll probably be an issue 2, is I want to see a young Governor Price. I want to see what that looks like.
Well, we know we'll get that. I mean,
yeah. So that's going to be great.
Like I said, if you have to buy one Star Wars product this month, go out and buy Thrawn #1. Go and buy 2 because send Marvel the market signal. We need more of this. This is good.
Yeah. Well, I would also implore the people. The next comic I want to talk about quick. We're not going to talk about the main Star Wars comic. We can talk about that next month.
Yeah.
But the next comic I want to mention is Dr. Aphra. Like this comic series, at points it's a little rocky, but as soon as for me, and I think you feel the same way, Robin, as soon as they introduced, I guess she's Inspector Tolvan now.
Mm-hmm.
She was originally Commander, I think. And as soon as they introduced that and the relationship between her and Dr. Aphra, and like literally the bisexual or lesbian, depending upon what the context, relationship between those two, I was just, and they're pretty much making out in almost every issue. And I'm not saying this because, I need hot lesbian action in my life or something. Okay.
Not that that's bad.
Not that it's bad, by no fucking means. Okay.
Right. But, I think you would agree Star Wars needs more sex.
It needs a lot more.
And Dr. Aphra has it. If that's what you need in your life, then this is the comic to go get.
Yeah, it's amazing how this is such a lighthearted comic, but then at the same time, it's easily the most adult of the bunch.
Yeah.
And I think that it's fun. I like it. And it feels really Star Wars. And definitely, I'm sure other people have said this. I haven't heard it yet, but I'm sure they've said it. Dr. Aphra is easily the Harley Quinn of the Star Wars universe right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I would even say Dr. Aphra is like an improvement on that sort of character archetype.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. And this is a character that needs to come to life.
Yes.
That needs to, as in like, she needs to be in a movie. She needs to be the real deal.
Right.
Originally from the pages of Darth Vader. We'll talk about volume 2 of Darth Vader probably next month as well, because I've been enjoying that comic too. Which
was interesting too, because you mentioned Inspector Tolvan. You find out in this episode that Inspector, was it Tanoth or something like that? That was in the Darth Vader counter. That was her mentor.
Right. Yeah.
And you find that out in this issue.
Yeah. Again, the comic books are doing, the thing that Star Wars isn't doing broadly, which is the universe really coming together, which is what Disney promised, where like all these elements kind of play into each other. The comic books are playing into everything beautifully. Like, they're really spending a lot of time with that. The Dr. Aphra comic is doing a great job of that as well. But this is, again, a comic series that is genuinely funny. It's genuinely fun. It's also sexy, and it's putting a spin on Star Wars that didn't exist before, which is this, break in heteronormative relationships.
Right.
And I'm really, really happy that it's out there. And just
it's needed. Especially considering what we're going to talk about next, I think, which is kind of like going in the opposite direction. So,
let's just go into it.
Because like, I'll say about this episode, this issue of Dr. Aphra, it wasn't my favorite.
17. Yeah,
it wasn't my favorite. I would say it was kind of a low point. And I think part of that has to do because I read this after the Rebels episodes where Kanan dies. Yeah. And so sort of, seeing Hera, kind of in chains and with this bow tied on it, that was kind of insult added to injury. And that really didn't set well with me. Yeah, yeah,
Especially
and they
when
really
made her such a badass throughout the rest of the comic.
Right, right. Well, I mean, and she kind of had a hard edge in this issue that she doesn't have in the TV show.
Yeah,
It was
well,
kind
this
of
would
seemed a little out of character, but at the same time, she's probably kind of like a lot more hardened by her experiences. So I get it.
Right, this is post Rebels, so
yeah,
it makes sense. Right,
yeah,
love of her life is gone. I mean, and she's probably had time to process it, and she's just pissed.
right.
You know?
So that's all I have to say about that. I mean,
sure, no, you're right.
Overall, the Dr. Aphra series is probably one of the best things in Star Wars comic going, other than Thrawn.
Yeah. I mean, we did get another kiss in this one. You know, we did get another lesbian kiss, which I thought was great. But yeah, now that you mention it, you know, with in hindsight of what we were talking about earlier with Rebels, yeah, Hera being tied up with a literal gift bow on her head at the end of it is insult to injury. So speaking of insult to injury, so we you know they've announced so many different movies and TV and maybe even TV shows and whatever, you know, Disney has that are coming up for Star Wars. And like particularly the Rian Johnson is getting his own trilogy. I think they'd be wise to temper talk about that and just kind of relax for a while. But this is one that they were just downright proud of, and I couldn't believe that they were downright proud of it. This was announced on February 6th.
I'm surprised more people aren't calling them out on this too.
Yeah, so I'll just read I mean, this is right from the Star Wars blog from StarWars.com. Game of Thrones creators David Benioff and D.B. Weiss to write and produce a new series of Star Wars films. Robin, let them have it.
I mean, I'll just say it. Really, 2 more white cis male directors. Really, Lucasfilm. Come on.
We're not the only guys to say this too. Like, I mean, a lot of people are pissed.
And there'll probably be people who are surprised I'm saying this. Well, I'm sorry, but it's accurate. I mean, fuck this shit.
Yeah,
really. I mean, this kind of lends me. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy has said that she's talked to all the female creators, directors, writers in Hollywood to get them to do a Star. Bullshit. Bullshit. Okay. I don't believe it for a second. And this only leads me to reinforce this feeling. And here again, I don't know. I mean, Star Wars does have a problematic history when it comes to women. Yes. There's no question about it, especially when you go back. And like I said, you read Rensler's book and you read The Secret History of Star Wars. There are problems.
Right.
Especially and it all comes from the top.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's problems in universe and in production. I mean, I would say it's more so within in production on the backside of it. Yeah, I mean,
it's just as true now, if not more true, than it was then.
Yeah, right. I mean, like the amount of Star Wars fans that don't know the name Leia Brackett bothers the fuck out of me.
Yes, I was gonna. You beat me to it. Yeah. And Marshall Lucas.
I've said this before that I think. Like she's the brilliance behind The Empire Strikes Back.
No, I mean, okay, I'm sorry, Star Wars fans, but Lawrence Kasdan is not a great writer. Okay, he's mediocre at best, and if The Last Jedi doesn't prove that, then I don't know what to tell you.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Sorry, no, I meant The Force Awakens because
Force Awakens.
He wrote The Force Awakens. That was a mediocre movie. And if you can, it's out there, folks. Lee Brackett's original draft of Star Wars 2, aka The Empire Strikes Back. You can go find it on the internet. Read it. And the really insulting thing is George Lucas said that he had to throw the whole thing out and start over from scratch. That's a lie. That is just an out and out lie because you read it and all the major story beats and plot points are there, with the exception that Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader. That's the only major difference between what she wrote and what ended up in the final script.
Yeah, which is a later invention anyway.
Right. Yeah, and here again, I mean, that just leads to more lies by George Lucas that you know, he had that idea from the beginning, which is bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, absolutely. So my opinion, I mean, at least they put her in the credits for Empire Strikes Back. At least she gets a little bit of credit.
Right. And that one credit is what gives Star Wars its 4%, as in 4% of Star Wars directors and writers are women.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
96% of the writers and directors behind the Star Wars movies are all men,
Right.
white men.
Yeah. And, and what's crazy too, like the other, because I think Leigh Brackett, I think her name, she's one of the things that has truly made Star Wars great. The other person that did that was George Lucas's wife.
Yeah, that's what I said. Marsha Lucas. And this is a big thing for me too.
I mean, editing
because
makes
George,
and she did it.
yeah. And then, they had a divorce and George Lucas got butthurt and literally erased her from history.
Right.
And now, if that isn't problematic, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and you know what makes it sad? All right. So, well, first thing I want to mention the divorce, but first thing is that if anybody thinks this is new, go listen to my review of The Force Awakens from what year was that? 2015. Go listen to that. And I talked about the fact I talked about Leigh Brackett then, and said like this, it's crazy that she doesn't get enough credit. But now there's an argument that the reason it took 15, almost 20 years for there to be episode 1, for there to be another Star Wars movie after Return of the Jedi. One of the arguments is that because of the divorce between George and his wife, and that he didn't want her to get any of the money. Now, look, she deserves the fucking money. Like if that's really what it was about, like she deserves as much money as Star Wars makes in anything.
She deserves a whole lot more than money.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And in fact, I would say money is the smallest part of what she deserves.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad we get to bring this out. I'm glad this is getting talked about because it doesn't get talked about nearly enough by anybody.
One thing I do want to mention, and I was so happy when I discovered this. So on the video service Vimeo, which is kind of like an alternative to YouTube, there is an interview with Marsha Lucas from the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. And as far as I know, it's the only interview that exists with her in it talking about Star Wars. And I'm so glad it exists because it was my fear from the longest time that she was going to remain erased from Star Wars history beyond what was written in a few books and what, people on outside of Lucasfilm talk about her. She finally gets to tell at least part of her story about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And I was really afraid that she was going to end up dying and not being able to at least, she talks about lighthearted things in this interview, and that's fine. But I was really afraid that she was going to die without at least being able to tell part of her involvement in Star Wars. And that really would have broken my heart.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I mean, back to Wise and Benioff, if that's how his name's pronounced. I don't even
whatever.
Really care. Back to the two white boys. Yeah. If people, I'll probably lose a patron over that one, but whatever. Yeah, fuck it. I don't give a shit. History's on my side. Sorry.
Blame it on me. I don't care.
But if you're not Kathleen Kennedy, if you're not Disney, and you're not opening your pocketbook to ask Patty Jenkins, how much do you want to make a movie right now? Like I just don't believe it. I don't believe that they didn't they wouldn't have tried that. I mean, Patty Jenkins is a name anybody and their mother wants, and I also can't believe she wouldn't want to do a Star Wars movie. I mean, honestly, who wouldn't want to? But then also, of course, what I could believe too is that the powers that be of Lucasfilm and Disney, I don't think they like directors of that level of independence. Like that independent thought.
Yeah, I mean, and so I have a couple of theories about this that I'm going to get into a little bit. I really question how much decision-making power Kathleen Kennedy has.
Right.
I've speculated for a long time that Bob Iger is really micromanaging Lucasfilm.
Sure.
So, and I don't think he's a friend to women at all. So they wouldn't.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't even see like if you want somebody to get in there on Star Wars and make sure things are flying right, you'd want to bring in Kevin Feige. you know,
Yeah.
or Feige, or I mean,
Feige,
whatever.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, bring him in, like, because obviously he knows how to make a winning recipe. Or you know, at least winning with the populace.
Right.
And I understand that, but Bob Iger, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, no,
Well, he's a businessman, and he's
sure.
and businessman.
Yeah,
You know?
right.
And the other thing about and even if Kathleen Kennedy does have any, you know, really decision-making power when it comes to choosing female writers and directors, this comes back to Marcia Lucas, and that Marcia Lucas was part of that sort of gang of Lucas and Coppola and Brian De Palma and that whole pack of creators back in the 70s and 80s who basically ostracized Marcia out of the business because she was a great editor in her own right.
Yeah.
Before Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they all colluded to basically disappear her, and they succeeded, you know? Yeah. So I'm not letting, you know, Kathleen Kennedy completely off the hook on that number, because she was part of that.
Yeah, I mean, and if anything, like, okay, say you're going to hire, you know, all these guys, you know, to be as directors and whatever, and you just keep tossing out all these, you know, big guy names. I mean, they could do like an awards thing. You know, it's not, I don't think they have to appease George that much, where they could really give, I don't know, do something, you know, put a package together and play it at a celebration that shows
talk about her. Just talk about these people, you know. You don't have to give them some stupid award, you know. Put specials up on, you know, StarWars.com or on the YouTube channel or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, Marcia's still around. Go talk to her, God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. I mean, that would at least be something to kind of assuage, you know, I mean, we're not the only people saying this. I mean, like, there's people who are mad about, you know, these guys.
In that interview with Marcia, it only exists because, you know, people outside of Lucasfilm went and sought her out.
Right.
To do interviews with people behind Star Wars. That wasn't a Lucasfilm production.
Yeah.
But there certainly needs to be one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, well, again, back to Dan and Dave here, you know, DB Weiss and David Benioff. Like, you know, aside from all of that, they're really they're not buying these guys. They're buying Game of Thrones. Like, they're buying the name Game of Thrones. And I think,
and of course, the big talk is like these guys are going to do the Old Republic movies, which fuck that. You know, yes, I want those movies. No, I don't want them to do them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would, like, what? Why even copy that model? I mean, I know I'm biased, like, against Game of Thrones, and people know that about me, and that's fine. But I'll just say it straight. Like why even try to run with that? Like, Knights of the Old Republic is what we had of it is so much cooler than anything done in Game of Thrones. So, like, why even, like, don't even try to appease to that.
I know.
And yeah, I don't, there's nothing good about this announcement. And fortunately, most of the other Star Wars commentators, and that's a thing, that are out there, you know, none of them had seemed to be impressed by this either. You know,
but I don't think they really see the problems with it that we do.
Sure.
At least I agree. I'm not hearing it from them.
No, I agree.
Because don't get me wrong, folks. I do love George Lucas. Okay. I'm not saying he's a terrible human being.
Right.
He's got his problems like all of us do, but we have to acknowledge those problems.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, yeah, I love George, but sure. I mean, like, there's I mean, I've complained right and left about cause he has a very powerful narrative around how he created Star Wars that you can debunk 6 Ways to Sunday, so much of it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the amount of movies that he planned, like, if you read the original A Splinter of the Mind's Eye, he says he had 9 movies made.
Those 12.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
12. I mean, yeah. Like I said, go read Rinsler's book. There were going to be 12.
Yeah. And then when Leonard Maltin is interviewing him in the beginning of the last VHS release of the original versions of the movies, He says right in that, he says, "Oh, I only ever planned 2 trilogies."
Yeah,
It's like, you fucking liar! Shut up.
Yeah. Well, and he also says that the prequels and the original trilogy were always about the tragedy of Darth Vader. Bullshit. No, you're lying.
Yeah, exactly. So, right. Anyway, this is stuff, well documented stuff that you can find out about.
Yeah, like, don't take our word for it either. Go back, like I said, go read these books. Go find these interviews. They're out there. If Brian wants, I'll even give links to them.
If you've got them handy, we'll put them
I don't have them on my computer right now, but I can find them very easily, and I'll give them to you.
I'll try and get them in the show notes. So
okay.
Yeah. Overall, nothing exciting about, like, other than the movies that aren't confirmed, as in like the Obi-Wan trilogy, which I'm totally on board with.
Yeah. I don't know that it needs to be a trilogy, but I do want that at least one movie.
Yeah, I'll take one. Yeah. I mean, if it's not a trilogy, I'll take one. But I would take a trilogy as well. Other than that, I haven't heard anything that's like, blowing up my skirt. Like, I'm not very excited about, I don't know, anything that they've announced. Even if because they announced the TV show kind of low key as well, if I remember correctly.
Well, there's been talk about the TV show for decades.
Yeah.
I mean, they have some sort of backlog of like over 100 scripts.
Yeah, for some Palpatine show.
Yeah, it was a Star Wars Underworld.
Yeah. That Rick McCallum was working on.
And they keep saying that, oh yeah, that's going to happen. We're going to do that someday. And it's like, well, come on, guys, where are you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. And it's not just like because of the Solo movie, but like none of this stuff is like exactly what I think the diehards want to get excited about or need to get excited about.
It's kind of amazing that with the dearth of Star Wars stuff that we got this month, so much of it is just really kind of a disappointment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that would be exciting, in fact, I heard Perry Nemiroff was talking about this. I mean, and I agree with her that the best thing they could do right now is to announce whatever Filoni's next project is, because that'll get people excited. And I agree.
There is a rumor about that. It got leaked the other day that Lucasfilm has trademarked the name Star Wars Resistance for a bunch of different products, TV, books, games. Okay. So maybe that's it. Maybe that, but they do seem to have some sort of transmedia event happening with this thing called Star Wars Resistance. And I don't know if that refers to the Resistance from the sequel trilogy or what. I could definitely see him doing that, but who knows? They really do need to get on announcing what Filoni's next project is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that they have anything like a trailer, but something like that would at least give some people something to look forward to, because regardless of anything we were talking about in this episode, like we said before, I mean, we feel pretty confident with Star Wars in Filoni's hands, whatever it ends up happening to be, because, he has the proven track record, unlike any of these people. Right.
He got a promotion not long ago. Yes. So he's like the overall director of animation.
Right.
The rumor is he's working on more than one project, which would be great.
Yeah. I mean, all that's fine. Just give us one of them. Let us know what's happening.
If I was a betting man, I'd have to say we're probably not going to hear anything until after Solo comes out.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I figured. The reason why is because they would feel that for the masses it would be too tight.
Yeah, they don't want to steal Solo's thunder, because I think that movie's already going to have problems.
Yeah, I agree. So, well, anyway, we rounded out the month of February pretty damn well. As far as Star Wars goes.
I should hope so. What, it's like 2 hours.
We did 2 hours. Well, I don't know if ever. Go ahead.
I think this is the longest Star Wars update you've ever done.
It is. Yeah, I definitely can say that. But I mean, I don't know that the Star Wars updates are going to run this long all the time. Certainly we had a lot more to talk about, and some introductions to get into and everything. But certainly the amount of topics I don't think will shrink. There's always Star Wars news going on, whether it's good or seemingly mostly terrible.
Yeah. Well, even if it's not news, like, Brian and I have, things that we're talking about. So, I mean,
we got some cool stuff planned.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So Anyway, let's wrap this up. Robin, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you as a co-host.
Thank you for having me. I love being here. I love, getting sweaty with you and talking nerd shit.
Oh yeah, man. This is what I live for. Well,
me too.
It's like number 2 on my list.
Yeah, it was like I told you when before the search, I've been looking forward to this all month long.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, so we'll have another one in March. Probably be closer to the end of the month again. Actually, I know it will be because I'm going to want to review The Last Jedi after that comes out, and I can watch it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 more times. And then like really give it that review after that, and maybe see some of those deleted scenes and whatever else is going on. So yeah, that'll be happening. But again, Robin, thank you. And to all the Sovryn Tech patrons out there, we will see you on the other side. Oh, Robin, where can they find you if they want to follow you? You got anywhere you want them to go?
Yeah, I do have a Twitter account that, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've been kind of pulling back on my social media. So, I mean, don't feel obligated to follow me. In fact, I'd prefer if you didn't.
Somebody's been listening to Sovryn Tech too much.
you can find me at the _Freebeard on Twitter.
Awesome. And I'll put that link in the show notes just in case people want to, you never know.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you again, Robin. And to all the Sovryn Tech patrons and the Star Wars sweaties out there, we will see you on the other side.